Please welcome Linda Metcalf, President of the AAMFT.
Good afternoon. Our next speaker has been involved in AAMFT for a long time. She's been a clinical member, now clinical fellow, since 1977. She's an approved supervisor, served as the divisional president on the COAMFTE, as a director on the board, and 2 terms as president of our association. She's known 4 executive directors of AAMFT. This afternoon, Annabeth Benningfield will talk about Michael Bowers, whom she got to know very well from their years of working closely together. Annabeth Benningfield. Please welcome her.
We had a big job, and we knew it. It was 1993, and the executive director of AAMFT had resigned in January, just as my first term as president began. We had to advertise the position, sort through applications, and choose some to interview in person. We were the search committee: Mary Ann Armour, chair; Tony Jurich, Marcia Laswell, George Meyer, and me. With the help of a great consultant, we developed our plans for the interviews. We interviewed 6 applicants, and Mike Bowers was our last one on a Friday afternoon, and we were tired. Now, we all thought we knew Mike pretty well. He had been on staff for 7 years, already working with divisions, and he had been in board meetings to talk to us about what was happening in divisions. He had socialized with us, been at conferences with us. But when Michael began to describe his ideas about what AAMFT could be, what our members needed, what our divisions needed, what he thought professional associations were about, we were amazed. This man had a vision we had not heard from any other candidate. He talked about Russian dolls as metaphors for how various functions could be nested within others. He talked about staff teamwork. He talked about cross-training employees so that people could do more than one job. And he talked about how, with our limited resources, we had to make $1 do the work of 3. He talked about policy and advocacy, and we knew he wasn't talking about board members offering advice on how to redecorate the office, which some of us had witnessed. Who was this person? We had interviewed 5 other people, all of whom were competent, but Michael brought something extra to the interview. Not only was he trained as a marriage and family therapist, he truly believed the profession made a difference. He believed in us, who we are in the world, and what we do. And most importantly, he understood that the role of the ED is to make hard decisions and take the heat. Therefore, on the recommendation of the search committee, the board of directors hired him. We had big plans for the future, of course. We would strengthen the divisions, we would have more and better training opportunities, we would show the world just how valuable MFTs are. Then in July of 1993, just 3.5 months after he was hired, Mike called me. Annabeth, we've got a problem. Attendance at the meeting in Anaheim, and this was back in the day when AAMFT was heavily dependent on the revenue from the annual conference to fund our programs and activities, was not likely to generate anywhere near the projected return. We needed to act quickly to conserve our resources, so Michael and I looked for ways to cut spending immediately. He ended up laying off 10 staff members, and I ended up canceling committee meetings and obligations that required travel, curtailing some initiatives, eliminating my own and the president-elect's stipend for the rest of that year. Michael and I vowed we never wanted to be in that spot again. So from then on, we both became highly conservative on estimating revenues and very vigilant about calculating and watching expenditures, which did not endear us to some of our colleagues in some divisions. I could tell you many stories about Michael's dedication to our profession and our association, but my time is too short, and some stories are better left untold. So in tribute to his long and distinguished leadership and service as Executive Director of AAMFT, I'll just mention a few reasons we have to be grateful that he wanted to be our ED back in 1993. If you live in a state or province where MFTs are licensed, more than likely you have Michael and his staff, along with divisional leaders, to thank. Only 11 states were licensed when he was hired as a staff member in 1996, and no provinces had governmental recognition. Today, all 50 states are licensed, and several provinces have or are close to governmental recognition in Canada. If you live in a division that has received legislative grants or other financial aid from AAMFT, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you work in a public school setting, on a Native American reservation, or in the Veterans Administration, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you are proud that marriage and family therapy is listed as one of the core mental health professions and mentioned by name in federal legislation, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you are making a living working as an MFT, including payment by third parties, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you receive referrals from Therapist Locator, the very first online referral service for a mental health profession, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you have received or know of a recipient of a fellowship awarded to an MFT graduate student by SAMHSA, especially a minority student, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you're proud of the fact that AAMFT is now the owner of a building in Old Town Alexandria, which has no mortgage, paid off 7 years early, by the way, due to his careful fiscal management of our resources, you have Michael to thank. If you've presented or attended one of the research or training conferences sponsored by AAMFT, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you believe that our expanded presence in the United States and Canada helps to make life better for families and relationships of all kinds, you have Michael to thank for keeping that vision, that dream alive, because he has either worked directly himself to make these things possible, or he has supervised, advised, coached, mentored, and inspired others in their work to do so. Now, of course, Mike didn't make anything happen all by himself. Boards of directors, hardworking divisional leaders, individual members who responded to calls for help on various projects and used personal resources to accomplish goals, as well as loyal and skilled fellow staff members, were also necessary to achieve these results. But Michael's creative leadership, his tireless efforts, and his ability to conceive of strategies for doing more with less in the service of members so that we can do good in the world have been the core of Michael's leadership for a very long time. Thank you is completely inadequate here, but I will close with thank you, Michael, for your steadfast commitment to the profession, your innovations and leadership, your personal dedication to AAMFT being one of the best professional associations anywhere. Each and every one of us owes you big time. Please join me in thanking Michael.
Please welcome Michael Bowers, Executive Director of the AAMFT.
Cooking in the microwave. Got a 3-day beard out on plan to shade, and it's a goofy thing, but I just gotta say, I'm doing all right. Yeah, I think I'll make this homemade soup. It feels pretty good.
I've got to be able to talk, so you can't do that. Last night, I pulled out a calculator, and by my most conservative estimates, since I have worked for AAMFT, the members of AAMFT have provided over 200 million hours of therapy. That is, that's quite a lot of good in the world. And one of the reasons that I chose to work and stay here for that long was because I believed that I was doing scalable good. Dr. Elder said that you want to plant trees under whose shade you will never sit. And that's been how I have conceived my work. It's been a singular honor, and any successes that you hear about or read about or that have been mentioned today have come about because really of two primary factors. Number one, AAMFT embodies powerful core ideas and ideals. The idea that relationships are fundamental to the health and well-being of individuals, couples, and families and communities is powerful, and we know in our bones that it is inherently true. And now we are seeing the science of the world catch up to those ideas. So truly, the organization in its philosophy and in its values has been ahead of its time for many years, and I have been privileged to help ride the wave of the strength of that idea and carry it forward. And that has been one of the foundational aspects of its success. The second is the people. The people who get up every day and and who do the work all day long, and at the end of the day turn off their lights and go home without a lot of thank yous, without a lot of fanfare, who sit with people in their pain, who sit with people in their struggles. And who make a difference. And I believe that you deserve to be paid commensurate with the value that you provide to society. And that has driven me as well. But there are two groups of people that I just want to recognize today because I think they are representing the core not only of the past but also of the future of the organization. One is those who train marriage and family therapists, who work in our programs, who teach and who supervise those in our programs. And you have been central to the value that has been created in this field in my tenure and will be in the future. And if you work training MFTs, I would like to ask you just to stand so that I can applaud you one last time. Thank you. The other group is really dear to my heart because that's why I came to AAMFT. When I was hired and came on March 24th, 1986, Mark Ginsburg, who was the exec, had been at AAMFT only 2 weeks and didn't know much about AAMFT, much more than I did, actually. And he basically said, there's your desk, there's the phone. There's the file cabinet. AAMFT didn't have a fax machine in 1986, so he couldn't point that out to me. He said, call people and learn what your job is. We need to get divisions organized, and we need to get licensure in the states. And so I began to work and was privileged over my career to testify, write testimony, and present it in at least 22 state legislatures that I can remember, and probably more than that. But I worked alongside a cadre of people who sacrificed income, who sacrificed hours, not for glory, but for their belief in the vision of this field. And I would like to also recognize all of those who have or do work in divisions, on boards, on committees. As presidents, I would like to ask you to stand so I can applaud you one last time. Thank you. The reality is the strength of the organization and the strength of this field is represented there and in everyone who provides services and everyone who believes in the power of relationships as a healing force in the universe. The commitment to quality, the commitment to these ideas, and to the ongoing work of our field has been reflected in the last 2 days in the many workshops and posters and events that have occurred throughout this conference and that will continue in tomorrow's seminars. We come here to learn from one another how to help, how to thrive, how to transform, and how to create change. And it's my pleasure in this final plenary to introduce my final plenary speaker for this conference, Liza Donnelly. And she's going to talk to us about change.